It's Eagles Week here at the Star in Frisco, and welcome to Cowboys Insider inside the Academy Sports and Outdoors studio here at the Star. Bill Jones with Nate Newton, Rick Goslin, and Daryl Johnston as, yes, the daunting task of taking on the best team in football, the Philadelphia Eagles, awaits the Cowboys on Sunday night at AT&T Stadium as they pick up the pieces from what happened in Atlanta on Sunday. And as always, we kick things off with an opening statement from our analysts, and we start with the Moose. Hello, Daryl.
Good morning. Good morning. Time to flush this one real quick and get focused on the Eagles because that was not a good performance, and we were all worried about how this team was going to be without Ezekiel Elliott, Tyron Smith. Boy, that's a big loss. Sean Lee's now out. And don't forget about Dan Bailey. This is a team limping into the game with the Philadelphia Eagles.
You know, limping they are, but you do have to play. And you have to find a way to help your players get in a position to win. And the players themselves have to take a step up, especially that front four. You cannot let, because Sean Lee leaves, you don't know how to line up or you don't know how to make a tackle. You have to play ball.
If you think the Atlanta front was impressive, where do you see the Eagles? Jim Schwartz brings pressure. And they got Chris Long on the bench. They got the number one draft pick, Derek Barnett, coming off the bench. These guys can bring about 6-7 pass rushers, and everybody's going to have to be in their A game, including the left tackle, whoever it is.
And, of course, that's where we'll start, is at left tackle. It's the first of 2 games in 5 days, and the Chargers have a pretty good front on Thanksgiving Day, too. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. What do the Cowboys are hoping and praying that Tyron Smith is back this week against the Eagles?
The most important thing. And if he's not, obviously they've got to make adjustments to their game plan. You cannot let Chaz Green out there on his own, Byron Bell on his own. You've got to have tight ends. You've got to have running backs. You've got to do everything you can. Like Nate said, you've got to adjust this and account for this, because I agree with Rick. We saw Philadelphia earlier this year. This front is better than Atlanta's front.
You know, it's just amazing that we lose a few guys and we come unhinged. And I understand how important today's salary cap, how things are so important with players. But you got to find a way to stop Fletcher Cox, because he makes all of this happen. So your middle got to be strong, help your tackles when you have to, and let's get going.
It's difficult when you're losing your starting left tackle, who's a Pro Bowler, and your middle linebacker. Guess who also lost their starting left tackle, middle linebacker? The Eagles. And guess what? They haven't collapsed.
They haven't. This goes to show how important a left tackle is, right?
Yeah, Jason Peters, he hasn't been there for 2 weeks. They have not collapsed. Jordan Hicks, their middle linebacker, gone. They have not collapsed. They lost their starting corner for several weeks, Fletcher Cox for several weeks. They built a 53-player roster where the next man up is qualified to be the next man up.
You know, it's difficult going back and looking at the Atlanta game and finding other aspects of what the Cowboys were doing offensively because of the glaring problem there was at the left tackle position. But as far as the run game is concerned, it's so essential to this team, Daryl, to be able to establish the run game. They have to do it against the Eagles this week.
Well, we've talked about this all season long, and Rick has really hit this point. You have to hand the ball off, and you're looking for 30-plus carries. And if you want to replace Ezekiel Elliott by committee, you still have to allow that committee to have that many carries. They got beat in time of possession. They got beat with plays. They only ran the ball 21 times. That's not Dallas' style. If they do that again against Philadelphia, it's going to be a tough night.
You know, I agree, but let's just get real. You ain't going to play 16 games and be able to run against everybody. So you're going to have to find a way to throw the ball. I remember Jimmy told us one time, we need to run the ball. We lost the game. We need to run the ball. And Jimmy came in there and just told us flat out, you know what, if you want to get physical, be physical pass blocking. Do your job. And that's not going at Chaz Green because he needed help. But the rest of these guys, do your job, step up, because you still have 7 more games. You have to play. So do your job.
This is your identity. This is a running football team. The pass feeds off the runs. You still have to make a commitment to the run. You have to run the ball. And I'll tell you, losing Elliott, if they had Elliott last week, they could have run him directly at Adrian Claiborne 3 or 4 times. That would have slowed that pass rush down.
Yeah, you can slow it down, but in 16 games, eventually your quarterback will have to win 1 or 2 games. Eventually, everybody has to play.
Yeah, but he can't win a game when he's running for his life.
I understand that. I understand that.
He was spent.
And I agree. That's why we have to come up with a scheme with the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach to say, this is what we have to do. This is what we can do. Because right now, the run game is obsolete. Find a way to win games. We got, 3 games in 13 days? You can't be limping. You got to be pimping, baby. You got to get in there and do what you do. Yeah.
And, of course, on the defensive side of the ball, the Cowboys lost Sean Lee, and it looks like they're going to be without Sean Lee maybe even over the next 3 games in 13 days.
Yeah, but at least they got Hitchens in there. I mean, for a while there, it was Sean Lee and Anthony Hitchens. So at least Hitchens is in there, and they'll get the rotation figured out with the other side. But again, Nate is absolutely right. This front has to step up now. When somebody else goes down and you have a weakness in one area, you've got to create a strength somewhere else. And they've got to tackle better in the secondary. Secondary has to tackle better.
That's going to be a week in, week out proposition. When you are inexperienced as a cornerback or a safety, one thing you can do is work on the very little things that you know you can do. Tackling should not be an issue. Landry Scandrick, I keep you out of my mouth, brother. But if you're going to lead this team, please lead by example. We had a 3rd and 5, and they threw to the tight end, and you were wide open. You had a chance to get that tackle and get your team off the field. You missed it, straight out missed it.
The Eagles ranked 26th in the league in pass defense, but guess what? Nobody notices because they have such a dominating front.
Yes.
And that's what the Cowboys have, the ability to be a dominating front. And they can take all the pressure off the linebackers and defensive backs by playing great. They have the capability. It's time to start doing it.
All right, when we come back here on Cowboys Insider, we take an up-close look at these 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles, getting you ready for Sunday Night Football.
Cowboys Insider, presented by Baylor Scott & White, is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, the official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys, AT&T, mobilizing your world, and by Baylor Scott & White. We're changing health care for life. This segment is brought to you by the Dallas Morning News. Nobody does sports like Sports Day. Your home for complete Dallas Cowboys coverage.
And the play fake and a bootleg to the right, and Prescott pumps. He's got the 5. He dives to the goal line. Touchdown, Prescott.
Dak Prescott with a rushing touchdown, the only score for the Cowboys against the Falcons last week. Now it's the Eagles, and welcome back inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios here at the Star Cowboys Insider. Let's examine these Eagles, who also have a second-year quarterback in Carson Wentz, who's playing like an MVP this season. It all starts with Carson Wentz, doesn't it, Daryl?
It really does. And the Philadelphia Eagles went out in the offseason and got some weapons to surround him with, and it's really paid off. Nelson Aguilar has really improved his play. They went out and got Jay Ajayi right before the draft deadline, and that was already with a loaded backfield with LeGarrette Blount. I like Corey Clement. He's one of those change-up guys in the passing game, more of a speed guy, similar to Kamara down in New Orleans. So this is an offense that's very talented across the board. And even with the loss of Jason Peters, which I thought was going to impact the Eagles a lot, they've made the adjustments.
Alshon Jeffries just took off 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, they found him in the end zone a couple of times. Now they've found the rhythm of him. He's just loaded with weapons. The only downfall he had last year was guys was dropping balls. Guys are not dropping balls. And Zach Ertz is his name, the tight end. The weapons just keep coming.
Yeah, Carson Wentz last year struggled as a rookie. It's a big step from North Dakota State to the NFL. He didn't have weapons. And I remember talking to Jimmy in '90 when Troy come off an 0-11 season, and I said, you know, what is there a quarterback situation here with he and Walsh? He goes, no. He said, the problem's not Troy Aikman. I got to put better players around Troy. As I put better players around Troy, he will become the franchise quarterback we think he is. That's what they've done with the Eagles. LeGarrette Blount, Jay Ajayi, Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith. All of a sudden, they've given him weapons. He's had 5 touchdown passes of 50 yards or more to 4 different receivers.
And they've done it even as this season has gone along. It's just a couple of weeks ago where they acquired the Frisco Liberty High School grad Jay Ajayi from right back in the Cowboys' backyard here in Frisco, and they've loaded up at the running back position.
Yeah, and they're very similar to Dallas. You know, they're not maybe as run-first mentality as Dallas is, but that is still a huge component. Doug Peterson has always leaned on it a little bit, and now, like Nate said, that wide receiver core is starting to step up, and Zach Ertz is a huge matchup issue. So you're going to see a team that's very similar in style to the Dallas Cowboys offensively.
And let's talk about Ertz a little bit and what they do. You mentioned Alshon Jeffrey as well, and the weapons that Wentz has.
You know, when you look at this team, man, he comes out, he execute. He's got a good rapport with his coach, with his offensive coordinator. They put in plays, he put in plays. I mean, he's got a good rollout game. And what amazes me is he never seems to be there for the sack. You got him 8 guys on top of him. He squirms out, makes a big play with his feet or with his arms.
Yeah, he extends plays. That's what he did in college. That's what he's doing here. last year he was running for his life. Now he's running to make plays, and he's an MVP candidate. He's had a great first half of the season.
And the big emphasis this year in the offseason was situational, third down, red zone for Carson Wentz, and he has really taken some big strides in those key areas.
And we touched on it in the first segment. We need to touch on it again here because this Eagles defense, it's pretty menacing up front.
It really is. And Jim Schwartz, that's his style. You're going to see the two guys on the end. I mean, they're in 4-point stances, and they are coming up the field after the quarterback. I'm always amazed at how they still defend the run with the guys on the edges so set on getting to the quarterback, and yet you can't take advantage of them in the running game. So that will be something.
Vinny Curry. But it all starts in the mix with Fletcher Cox, man. This team survives off of him. He's always getting double teamed, and that frees these guys up on the end, and they come, like you said, they come like a bat out of, you know what, man, they are coming.
He was a guy I thought, and I was hoping the Cowboys were going to draft that when you went to Philadelphia, jumped up in Cowboys and took Cox. Now they put Timmy Jernigan next to him. Timmy Jernigan was a second-round draft pick out of Florida State. This front four is going to be a load for these Cowboys to handle.
And not only now, but for the future, because they just signed Timmy Jernigan to a contract extension as well. All right, we continue here on Cowboys Insider in just a moment as we take an up-close look at how the Cowboys will rebound after the loss in Atlanta and the loss of Sean Lee.
This segment was brought to you by the Dallas Morning News. Nobody does sports like Sports Day. Your home for complete Dallas Cowboys coverage. This segment is brought to you by DraftKings. Play for free today at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site.
Ryan in the gun on 3rd and 7. And back to throw. No rush at all. Throws it right in, complete. And intercepted on a deflection at the 30-yard line. Up and running down to the 20-yard line is Xavier Woods, playing in the nickel with his first professional interception.
And how about Xavier Woods, the rookie, making the plays? The Cowboys actually took the early lead against the Falcons back on Sunday. Welcome back to Cowboys Insider here inside the Academy Sports and Outdoors studios. Rick has already mentioned it. Dak Prescott said it on Tuesday of this week. This game against the Eagles, it's a game the Cowboys have to win. That's the approach that Dak has taken this week and that the team needs to take this week because the games are they're coming quick now, and they're limited number of games with a 5-4 record. Darryl, what do the Cowboys need to do to get back on track, though, against the Eagles? Let's start on defense because they're missing Sean Lee this week. And this is an amazing stat from this season. The first 19 out of 23 possessions for the opposition when Sean Lee was not on the field, the opposition scored. They got to do something here.
It's foreboding, isn't it?
It's depressing.
A lot of that was without Hitchens, so Hitchens is going to be there. I think you got to figure out the Jalen Smith, Justin Durant substitution there. What are they going to do? But again, I think Nate makes a great point in the first segment. You've got some guys that are out of the lineup. Rick has backed this up with exactly the same thing that Philadelphia has faced throughout the year. Dallas needs to forget about who's not going to be on the field and start worrying about who is on the field and come out and play a game. Because if you lose this game against Philadelphia, and they're just separating from you right now.
It'd be a 4-game lead for the
Exactly.
Eagles. Yeah.
It's all about the wild card right now. And you and a bunch of guys that's 5-4, whatever the score may be. But David Irvin, Tyrone Crawford, DeMarcus Lawrence got to come up even bigger. Malik Collins, these guys have to play big and give those linebackers a chance to come downhill instead of running sideways. The great anticipation that you get from Sean Lee, you have to take some of that upon yourself and watch a little extra film.
Yeah, you look at the standings right now. There are 4 NFC teams with 7-2 at least 7-2 records. I mean, your cushion is 6 losses. 10-6 should get you into playoffs. 9-7, not going to do it. So the Cowboys have a cushion of 2 more losses the rest of the way. And there's no room for error.
Now, Tyron Smith coming off the groin injury. We'll see if he'll be able to play on Sunday night. Obviously, Chaz Green was replaced by Byron Bell late in the game. What do you do at the left tackle position if Tyron can't go?
You make sure that what happened last Sunday doesn't happen again this Sunday. And if you have to alter your game plan, you have to alter your game plan. And I agree with Rick. We used to do this against the New York Giants. to take Lawrence Taylor out of the game, you run at Lawrence Taylor. You don't run away from him because he'll chase you, and you don't allow him to get into a pass rush mode. So you've got to be physical going towards that side of the ball. You got to do it with Brandon Graham on the right side, too. The difference this week, they were able to kind of keep Vic Beasley under wraps last week. You're going to have two really, really good guys on the edges, and as Nate points out, Fletcher Cox on the inside.
A tight end, Jason Witten, we love you, baby. Swain, we need you. That is what it's got to be. You can run formations where you bring the tight end across, bump, get into a route. You can run the running back out, bump, get into a route. You do what you have to do. Now, Brandon Bell, get ready to play, baby. I'm not going to take a chance with Chaz Green. You took this kid through something last week that I don't wish on nobody, my worst enemy. That's 6 sacks, bro. I've never gave up more than 2, so I can't tell you how this kid feeling.
I think play calling will come into play here as well. I think, at least for the start of the game, I think you're going to see a lot of 3-step drops. I don't think you see Prescott dropping back 5 and 7 yards with this pass rush. I think they want to get a feel-good going early. I think you see a lot of quick passes. Beasley, Witten, slants to Dez. I think they're going to start out with short passes and get the offensive line some confidence.
Coming from under the center, a shotgun, you think that's going to make a difference there? Well, how would you play it, Moose? I mean, would you come from under center with the drop, or would you be in shotgun?
I'm an under center guy. I mean, I like the shotgun element to it, but I prefer under center because under center makes the defense think about a lot more things. I think Beasley has to be a huge player. I think you need to crack guys on the outside, not just a tight end, not just a back chipping, but every once in a while you motion somebody in and you crack that end of line and you get them thinking about, listen, we're going to hit you from a number of different directions all day. We're going to slow you down because we're going to make you think every single snap.
You got to fix it. If it means playing under center, you fix it, you fix it.
Cowboys-Eagles, one of the marquee matchups in the league this weekend. There's some other good ones, and we go around the league when Cowboys Insider continues in a moment.
This segment was brought to you by DraftKings. Play for free today at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site.
Third and double digits all day long. And your left tackle's having trouble blocking. That's not a good recipe. Trips go out to the left. Prescott's in the gun on 3rd and 13 from his own 22. Back to throw, rushed, flushed out, sacked at the 15-yard line. Do I even need to say it?
No. And Brad and Babe seem just as frustrated as the Cowboys with. That was the 5th of 6 sacks for Adrian Claiborne last week. But we're moving on to Philadelphia this week, and we're going around the league now here on Cowboys Insider. Some good matchups around the league. Goose, by the way, has the Eagles as his number 1 team in the league. You have the Rams and the Vikings. They're in the top 5 or 6, I believe, in your power rankings. And they play each other in Minnesota, Goose.
Yeah, this is going to be a telling game. The NFL is all about quarterback and pass rush. That's what the Rams have going. Jared Goff's taking the next step with Sean McVay. In this pass rush with Wade Phillips, they hired the right guy because they've got some problems with the back end of the defense. But as long as that front 4 is dominating, which is what Wade's got him doing, and this is a good team. Vikings, I love their defense. It's going to be interesting to see how the quarterback plays out because Teddy Bridgewater's ready. There's a feeling that's put Bridgewater back in, but Case Keenum has played as well as his most quarterbacks since last month.
He had 4 touchdown passes this past week. All right, the Falcons playing at the Seahawks. And, of course, it's an Atlanta team that got back on track against the Cowboys.
2 wild card teams that the Cowboys are now chasing. They lost Sherman Williams, the Seahawks, and I think Atlanta's found their legs. It's going to be ugly for Seattle. I really do. I mean, because they can run now. I don't know if Devontae Freeman will come back, but they got Coleman. He did an admirable job last week, and he got all the weapons.
You talk about the injuries, though. Seattle lost their starting left tackle in training camp. They lost their best running back the first month. They lost their best pass rusher of April, first week of April. Now they lose Richard Sherman. That's a lot to overcome.
Yes.
All right, and then the Redskins playing at the Saints. And the Saints, they ran the football at will last week against the Bills, and they're playing great defense.
There used to be a difference with the Saints where you didn't want to have them down on their stadium. But when they went on the road, especially outside, they were a different team. I think Rick made a point during break. I don't think that's true anymore. I mean, you saw what they did to the Bills last Sunday. They almost had 300 yards rushing. So this is a team that's kind of found a different way to work. We talk about how offenses function. This has always been a Drew Brees-driven offense. This is now a Mark Ingram-driven offense, and that offensive line is playing great. and they're very complementary with a defense that's kind of putting all these bad seasons in the past.
They had so many rushing touchdowns last week. Drew Brees even had one in Buffalo. All right, we continue here on Cowboys Insider with our keys to a Cowboys victory coming up.
Cowboys Insider, presented by Baylor Scott & White, was brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world. Rico's, make every game a home game with Rico's. Baylor Scott & White, it's easy to find the right doctor right now at BaylorScottandWhite.com. And by NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full access to coaches' films and game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl. Subscribe at DallasCowboys.com/Game Pass.
Final minute of Cowboys Insider. Bill Jones with Daryl Johnston, Rick Gosselin, and Sherman Williams.
Richard Sherman. I'm sorry, Richard.
All right, keys to a Cowboy victory, Daryl.
Got to turn the page quick. We always talk about players not making the same mistakes twice. Coaches can't make the same mistakes twice either. Take care of your left tackle.
Go Cowboys.
These next 3 games, Cowboys will go as far as their blocking allows them to.
All right, Cowboys Eagles on Sunday night. Then they turn around and play on Thanksgiving Day against the Los Angeles Chargers. And we'll see you again next week here on Cowboys Insider.